story of Trump's collusion with Russia is falling apart. The mainstream media is scrambling. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Just so you know, YouTube is secretly unsubscribing people from the show, and they're not telling you when new episodes come out. So be sure to check back every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday for new episodes. You may remember the pervasive narrative that former President Donald Trump colluded with the Russians to win the 2016 election. Because without help from Russia, Americans would never vote for a celebrity billionaire real estate developer and loudmouth reality TV star over Hillary Clinton. That's like saying Americans would rather eat deep-fried Oreos than reduced fat wheat thins. You know, in hindsight, the 2016 election that shocked the world was entirely predictable. The idea that Trump colluded with Russia was in part sparked by what's called the Steele dossier, a document written by former British spy Christopher Steele. According to the BBC, the document was held up by Democrats to paint Trump as a Russian puppet, a narrative amplified in a feedback loop by most U.S. media for much of the president's 4 years in office. But over the years, an investigation by the Senate Intelligence Committee, and even the famous Mueller report, found no evidence of Russia collusion. Not that that stopped people from calling Trump a Putin puppet, including literally making Trump a Putin puppet. You know why America is great? People made these puppets, people bought these puppets, and no one got sent to prison or poisoned. But now, 5 years after the Steele dossier was leaked and published in the media, a key source for information for the dossier has been charged with lying to the FBI. More on that soon, but first, a quick recap of the Steele dossier. I covered it in depth in an episode back in 2018. As I said in that episode, the Steele dossier was opposition research funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee to dig up dirt against Trump. You can read it for yourself thanks to BuzzFeed. This was ammunition used by the mainstream media and the FBI to investigate Trump. But it turns out the Steele dossier was full of bad intelligence that led to even worse journalism. I'll explain why after the break. Welcome back. In 2019, former Attorney General Bill Barr appointed John Durham, an attorney for the Department of Justice, as a special counsel. His job was to investigate the origins of the FBI's original Russia probe, which began July 2016. That initial FBI investigation into the Trump campaign was fueled in part by allegations compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele. And guess what? We now know the dossier was filled with rumors, third-hand sourcing, and unproven assertions. That's in part because of the big news last week. Durham's investigation has led to the indictment of the Russian analyst behind the Steele dossier. The analyst's name is Igor Danchenko. In 2016, Christopher Steele hired Danchenko to investigate information linking Donald Trump to the Kremlin. When the FBI looked into the possibility of a Trump-Russia collusion, they asked Danchenko about his sources back in 2017. Well, it turns out he lied, allegedly. He lied, allegedly, about a lot of things, to both Steele and the FBI. He supposedly fed Steele some information that did not come from Kremlin-linked sources, as the dossier claims, but was gossip he picked up from an American public relations executive with Democratic Party ties, who did business in Moscow. The public relations executive was identified as Charles Dolan. He had worked for President Bill Clinton during his presidential campaigns and in the U.S. State Department. He also supported Hillary Clinton's 2 failed presidential campaigns. Dolan, the Clinton supporter, was Danchenko's primary source for a section of the dossier that analyzed Paul Manafort's resignation as Trump's campaign chairman in August of 2016. But the problem is, Dolan later admitted to the FBI that he had fabricated the basis of certain details he had provided to Danchenko. Specifically, Dolan told Danchenko he heard inside information about Manafort's firing from a Republican friend, but he made that up. Instead, he passed along information he had read in the media as inside information. Dolan may have also been connected to some of the information about the so-called P-tape. For those of you who don't know, there was supposedly a tape showing Trump doing lewd acts with prostitutes at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Moscow. In the Steele dossier, Danchenko cited as sources a female staffer and a senior Western member of staff at the hotel. According to the indictment, Dolan had stayed at the Ritz-Carlton in June 2016 to prepare for a conference he would be hosting there. While Dolan was at the hotel, he got a tour, and one of the hotel's staff told him Trump had stayed there, but did not mention any sexual or salacious activity. Meanwhile, Danchenko met with Dolan at the Ritz-Carlton. Danchenko later told the FBI he had heard information about Trump's purported activities from the hotel's general manager and other staff. Danchenko flew from Moscow to London a few days later and shared what he heard with Steele. And that was how the P-tape scandal became part of the Steele dossier. Someday, future historians will look back at the P-tape scandal and go, wow, I can't believe people back then still called digital files tapes. In his own defense, Danchenko told the FBI he had told Steele this was just rumor and speculation that he hadn't been able to confirm. Last month, ABC host George Stephanopoulos sat down with Christopher Steele and asked him why, if the tape is real, it's never been released and no one in the U.S. seems to have ever seen it. Steele replied, "It hasn't needed to be released, because I think the Russians felt they got pretty good value out of Donald Trump when he was president of the U.S. Right. That's like me saying I have a tape of Xi Jinping dressing up like Winnie-the-Pooh for Halloween. But I don't need to release it because the internet has already gotten pretty good value out of comparing Xi to Winnie-the-Pooh." And now you're starting to wonder if maybe he really did dress up like Winnie-the-Pooh. I mean, it's got to be true because it's on a t-shirt. You can buy that shirt on our website, by the way. Link is below. Anyway, Igor Danchenko has been indicted, and I'll get to more of his alleged lies after the break. Welcome back. On November 4th, a federal grand jury charged Igor Danchenko with 5 counts of making false statements while he was being questioned by the FBI about the Steele dossier. One of his claims was that he got information from an anonymous caller who in turn claimed the Kremlin might have helped Trump get elected. This anonymous caller, known as Source D in the Steele dossier, was Sergei Milyan, president of the Russian-American Chamber of Commerce in the USA at the time. He was a key figure in the Trump-Russia story. The media pounced on him, hoping that he'd uncover the truth behind the Trump-Russia collusion. Here's what this article from The Independent said back in 2017. Trump had a long-standing relationship with Russian officials, Milyan told an associate, and those officials were now feeding Trump damaging information about his Democratic opponent, Hillary Clinton. Milyan said that the information provided to Trump had been very helpful. Unbeknownst to Milyan, however, his conversation was not confidential. His associate passed on what he had heard to a former British intelligence officer. Many in the media at the time treated this as though it were true. The call with the Chamber of Commerce president was a reason the Steele dossier noted a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between the Trump campaign and Russia. The associate in this story, who got a phone call from Milyan and then passed on that information to Steele, is Igor Danchenko. But according to the 2021 indictment, it was not true. Danchenko never received such a call or such information from any person he believed to be Milyan, and Danchenko never made any arrangements to meet Milyan in New York. Rather, Danchenko fabricated these facts regarding Milyan. Meanwhile, Steele told the FBI he believed Danchenko had met with Milyan in person several times and that Milyan was one of Danchenko's sources for the P-tape story. Again, Danchenko never met or spoke with Milyan. The indictment quotes Danchenko's own emails, where he admits he tried contacting Milyan, who never responded to him. The indictment shows the Steele dossier was unreliable all along. Now, regardless of how you feel about Trump as president, if you care at all about the truth, you've got to be upset that the media got away with basing story after story on unreliable and, in some cases, fabricated evidence. I reported on how the media was so hell-bent on getting Trump back in 2019 that they failed to check whether the things they were reporting were true. The New York Times came out with a story that Trump campaign aides had repeated contacts with senior Russian intelligence officials, according to 4 current and former American officials. Former FBI Director James Comey later testified in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee that the New York Times report was not true. This CNN report? Retracted, and 3 journalists were forced to resign. Was a Trump server communicating with Russia? Nope. Robert Mueller has proof Trump directed his lawyer to lie to Congress? Not according to Robert Mueller himself. It's an example of the media presenting the public with information that originated in a vast and opaque industry of private spies and operatives for hire, who do business without all the rules and ethics of traditional media outlets, but who often inject their version of events into the mainstream press by feeding tips and scoops to reporters. This should be a wake-up call for reporters to fact-check their sources, and a wake-up call to everyone else to get their news from more reliable sources. What? No, not me, I'm just fixing my tie. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, please know we could not do it without direct support from viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered and contribute $1 or more per episode to help us keep the show going. So click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.